Hi, it's Mild Red Songbird, Mild Red Bird Song in New York City. This says from David Icke. It says he's an investigative journalist. Information leads to perception, which leads to behavior. So I want to mainstream some clues to you. This is a video I saw, and I got a question in it that I answered. The name of the video is "The Truth May Scare You. Look closely." 2019 to 2020. Visual channel. And I said, this is what they said. God is supposed to bring someone they know back to life. And that's what's supposed to happen when Jesus returns, or Jesus is going to return, something like that. So I said, when Eve, mother of the earth, Mary, wife of Jesus Christ's babies are born, the same person, in 2019, the boy baby is the 1st century and 20th century form of Jesus Christ, returned to life as Giancarlo Arturo Birdsong Spear, having been immaculately conceived, was the giver and sustainer of life on this plane, Earthland. Put an H here, H-E-A-R here, T-H, the will, L for will, of Adam, A for Adam, and A-N for Anne, angel, daughter of the Son, who is the giver and sustainer of life. April 2019, that's when the baby boy was conceived, Fayetteville, North Carolina, at the Science of the Soul Study Center, Saint-Martin, Son and Angel Truth. Okay, so that's the Son, and that's the angel and her truth, the Saint-Martin. And then the, T for the, Ma, M-A for Ma, and Adam, true. Okay, Ma and Adam are true. Ma is also Eve, Ma, mother of the earth, Eve. And she's also Mary. Okay? Another video that I just watched that I heartily think is critical for everybody to see, unless you want to die. It's called Agenda 21, The Plan to Kill You, by investigative journalist David Icke on YouTube. Problem? Self-identifying with labels. That's why we think what is real is not real, because we identify ourselves with the label provided by the enemy. Okay, now, what we're going to do is share with you my therapy session. I was the patient, the Michelle Birdsong, who is also the therapist. Sigmund Freud's ghost is in me. Fritz Perl, the German psychiatrist, ghost is in me. And Emma Jung, Carl Jung's wife, is in me. So, and the Michelle Birdsong created a therapy out of all that background of therapy. 2019, there was a therapy that she has been refining for 30 years. Created with Jesus Christ, Charan Singh. And remember, she's a daughter of the Son, the giver and sustainer of life. Okay, I wrote down the session when I saw that's what was going on. I do automatic writing, where you don't manipulate, you don't ego trip. Excuse me. You just let it come out. I said, I am in this room, meaning this room that I live in. You can see it's very small. Okay, and this is the room. Okay, all behind me is pictures of heaven and earth from the book, The Equilibrium of Love. Okay, I'm in this room having my Groundhog Day experience. Jaron Singh mentioned a first-class prison. This is it. I was trapped in bed, left alone in bed by my mother and her mother, called my grandmother, when I was 3 years old. My first question was, is the door locked? Can home invaders break down the door and get me? I couldn't get out of bed to go see if the door was locked. The bed was too high off the floor. My station in life has improved. I'm close enough to the door now where I can see if the switch is on the diagonal, which means it's locked. I didn't have water and food in that little room. My daughter, Melanie, sent me a small refrigerator and microwave. I bought food and put it in the refrigerator along with a cup of water. Am I bored? There was nothing for me to do in Grandma's room, but here I've taped pictures to the walls. Pictures of heaven and earth in India that I believe can be duplicated. Not the pictures, but the actual creation can be duplicated here in America when it becomes as I hoped. I've also taped photos of my family members now and in past lives. I have photos of my accomplishments, videos about talk and share, and interviews with Cain when I was Eve's mother, and interviews with Alexander the Great, whose name is now Alexander Danilian, who was my son in a past life. Interviews with my husband of 37 years, Michael John Spear. So I have taped notices of all those are on the YouTube channel, as well as a tape about Sneezy. It's a very good video. It's a family-friendly video, the best on YouTube, called Sneezy, on Michelle Bertong channel. I have a book, Sneezy the Greasy Baby, says Abigail, which was written with my daughter, Robin Birdsong. She wrote the book. I gave her the concept and the title of the book. And I wrote the lyrics for those two albums over there, What It Is and Supernatural. So, I have, this is What It Is album cover and Supernatural album cover. So you see I have a life here in images. They don't move, but some of them in the videos, if you watch them, of course they move. I even have images of Adam. The now Adam is Michael Bublé. He was Adam when I was Eve. I have lots of pictures of Adam because Adam sings to me. And of course people think you're crazy when you say that, but that's because they are caught up in the simulation that the powers that be have created for them. And they tell us that all there is the five senses. And of course, we are part of the unlimited consciousness. All we are. We are not our names. We are not our bodies. We are not our jobs. We are our attention span. I learned that when I was Fritz Perls, the German psychiatrist. And reality is the moment, the present moment, being in touch with the present moment is being in touch with reality. Instead, we are in touch with a lot of preconceived notions that nobody could be pregnant unless they had sex or were artificially inseminated. And when, in fact, I'm pregnant, and nobody could be pregnant past 40 years old, and I'm 74 and I'm pregnant. By the Sun Supreme Beam and by Jesus Christ's eyes. When I was Shakespeare, I told you there's more in the stars than in your philosophy, Horatio. I think that was what I wrote in Hamlet. I know I didn't quote it precisely, but it's a lot to remember. And that was a long time ago. But you get my drift. Alright. And so I said here, back to the therapy session. Are you afraid of being smeared or laughed at? As I asked myself, or Freud asked Michelle, same person. And I said, yes. Now that is a process of talk and share. That's how talk and share works. Did your mother laugh at you when you were singing from your heart? And did she make you feel like your heartfelt expression was a joke? Yes. My mother heard me singing. I was 6 years old in the kitchen washing dishes. And she heard me singing and called me to come to her in the living room and sing for her. I sang for her, and she laughed at me and said, go back to the kitchen. Charan Singh, Jesus Christ said, a joke is when everybody thinks it's funny. Okay, I didn't think it was funny. You are here on in. Okay, after she laughed at me and sent me to the kitchen, this became true. You are hereon in crippled. You can never express from then on you censor yourself sincerely will lose again. When you express yourself sincerely, you will lose again. You will lose self-respect. You will lose self-confidence. I lost self-respect. I lost self-confidence. I lost my dignity. I felt being a fool. You cannot understand what happened because you never got a chance to put the facts on the table and examine them. After I left my mother and went back to the kitchen, I was filled with emotion as a result of her reaction to my singing. But I didn't talk it through with anybody because there wasn't anybody to talk to. Okay? Freud, father of psychoanalysis, analyzes. When your God, your mother, mocked you, you could not bring yourself to admit your God was flawed, that she was cruel and cold-hearted and lacked empathy, because you needed to keep believing she was an all-perfect God. You were only 6 years old. You could not survive with a God, so without a God. So you decided to think she was right and you were a joke. It's the Stockholm Syndrome, where you get on the side of your enemy. Your singing was a joke. This is what you decided to believe because that's what she believed. That you could not sing as a normal singer. So with those new beliefs established in your brain, every time you tried to sing seriously, you failed miserably, as nobody can go against their own conviction, against their own determination, because it's unconscious and you don't even realize it's controlling you. Self-realization, yes. I was determined to believe my mother was right. I decided I was a fool who had the nerve and the vanity to believe I could sing. I had been opera diva. Now this is in my past lives, which I have learned about in the past couple of years. I had been opera diva Marian Anderson, jazz queen Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan, and Lisa Stansfield, gospel queen Mahalia Jackson, soul jazz singer Etta Jones. Yet I'm 5 minutes trauma when during my formative years wiped out all that ability latent in my being, in my mind. I was pathetic as an adult in music class, trying to sing sincerely, climb every mountain. While the class snickered and giggled, I continued to sing until I finished the song, not hitting the notes and cracking up and generally sounding awful. My mother had interrupted me when I was a little kid singing my heart out for her, my first audition. So at least my unconscious was satisfied that I had finished what I started by finishing the song in the class. When my granddaughter Jandara was younger than 2 years old, every night when I put her to bed, I would sing and perform a song for her, the same song, Love is a Many Splendorous Thing by the Four Aces. Years later, I discovered Jandara had been my mother, and my mother had been Shirley Temple, the child star. I don't know what my mother thought of my singing ability when I sang to her when I was 6. She never said a word about it. She just dismissed me without comment. She just said, nodding toward the kitchen, "You can go back to the kitchen." For the rest of my life with her, I spent time in the kitchen washing the dishes after meals, like Cinderella. And my sister, her favorite, my half-sister, sang in church choirs and in the glee club in school. When I was in the psych ward at Mount Sinai about 3 years ago, every night I would go into the hall outside my room unconsciously and sing The Sound of Music. When I was in India visiting the Perfect Living Master Jesus Christ Charan Singh, the first day I arrived, I went to the roof of the hostel and danced and sang The Sound of Music while seeing the Himalayas in the distance. I learned years later that when Charan Singh was in New York, he had attended the Broadway musical, The Sound of Music. As a child, considering what I wanted to be when I grew up, I considered becoming a nun, like Maria in The Sound of Music. I decided against it because I wanted to have children. When I was homeless some few years back, I found myself at the homeless shelter in Harlem. The Sisters of Mercy Convent, I think that it was called. Mother Teresa, the nuns, Saint of Calcutta, India's order. The nuns were not impressive nor inspired. The only time they came alive and excited was when the priest came to hold services on Friday. I saw them as part of his harem. It did come to me, or maybe Jesus Christ, 21st century, Govind Singh, told me, of all my lives, my finest moment was when, as a failed nun, I had taught the Baron von Trapp of Austria's children to sing. Having married him, the family of singers were allowed, our act allowed the family the opportunity to escape the Nazis during World War II. And when the Baron lost his fortune, we were able to survive because we came to America and made a fine living as the Von Trapp family singers. That story is the story of The Sound of Music, which I've seen many times, having no idea how personally involved with it I was. When I was in Kansas visiting my grandchildren, having no recollection of my past lives, I took my grandsons, Seth and Lou, to a nearby pawn shop where we picked out musical instruments when and if I got money to buy them. One day Seth said, "We'll be a jazz band." Just out of the blue he said that. I had in my research discovered that jazz and classical music during an experiment made plants thrive. Heavy metal and rock and roll killed those souls in those plants' forms. My first husband, Edwin Birdsong, who I worked very hard to help him get established in the music business, had played jazz when he was in the army with a trio. He traveled around Paris and Rome, and he was stationed in Germany. Edwin grew up playing the piano and singing gospel in his father's church, his so-called father's church. Edwin had been Bach and Irving Berlin in his past lives. I admired him because he could play piano. My piano lessons ended when Mrs. Jones, my music teacher, at my second or third lesson, hit my fingers with a ruler in the middle of my playing for her. Michael Bublé, who is Adam, sings a song, "Me and Mrs. Jones. We got a thing going on. We both know it's wrong." Yeah, we both know she was wrong to hit me. And then it said, talk and share. This is talk and share I'm about to do. I was shocked and I felt betrayed when she hit my fingers. I had presumed she was a friend. After all, my other mother, Andoni, wouldn't put me in the care of a babysitter piano teacher enemy, would she? And I had been able to discuss, what had happened to me with anyone, my other mother, my other father, who had been Jimi Hendrix, who played jazz and R&B before he got into playing psychedelic music and became a 1960s icon, Jimi Hendrix being put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as he was arguably the greatest instrumentalist in the history of rock music. Couldn't be talked to about my trivial life. I couldn't talk to anyone about my trivial life. I thought my life was trivial. because even as a child, I knew my other father was a saint. Come to find out, my other father, Jimi Hendrix, Brother Wright, had been Wilbur Wright, the co-creator of the Kitty Hawk, the first machine to fly, and he had been the saint Sardar Bahadur of India, and he had been one of the 10 Sikh gurus. I had no idea of this when I was 6, and I had known that I had been the first Sikh guru, Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism, that my grandsons, Seth and Lou, had been Sikh gurus, and my granddaughter, Jandara Michelle, had too as well been a saint. She was Baba Jamal Singh, and my grandson Lou, I'd come to uncover, had been the poet Saint Mirabai, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who'd been married to Coretta Scott King, who'd been an opera singer before becoming Dr. King's partner. He was a Capricorn, she was a Taurus. Okay, you know what? I'm going to stop this therapy session because I don't think I can finish in 4 minutes. And I'm sure I can. So I'll do part 2, the rest of the therapy session on part 2 of Michelle Freud's therapy session. Okay, so long.